Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach. The very first wedding that I can remember ever going to must have been 5 or 6 years old, and I traveled from Israel to Canada to go to it. It's one of my very first memories in general, full memories. It was my aunt and uncle's wedding. I just remember being in this humongous tent, and there was just so much a feeling of joy and easygoing. And I remember my father, who was young then, was doing Jewish Jewish wedding dances with bottles and all kinds of things. Everybody was very joyful. And I discovered unlimited soft drinks. And so I kept going to the bar and getting soda, and soda after soda after soda after soda. It was wonderful. And I remember being surrounded by all these tall people in their fancy clothes doing whatever they were doing, and I was just having a blast. Because there's no joy like the joy of a wedding. Just even back then, I could feel it. And it's also the joy of Sukkot. This is the joy of this holiday too. The Zohar imagines that the high holidays are like two lovers coming together, God and the Jewish people coming to an embrace on Yom Kippur. And then the Sukkah is the chuppah. You have the chuppah, and then the 7 days of Sukkot are like the Sheva Brachot, are like, right, the 7 days of blessing and gathering and celebration where you have guests and give you special blessing to everybody there. And right, it's to some degree, it's where this tradition of the Ushpizin, we have this tradition that on Sukkot you have every day a different divine guest who comes to your holiday. The 7 shepherds, the Ro'im, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, and David. And then we added the Ushpizot, who are the women guests who come. And so some do the 7 prophetesses, who are listed in the Talmud: Sarah, Miriam, Devorah, Hannah, Abigail, Huldah, and Esther. And others do the spouses of the shepherd men, of the Ushpizin. So you have Sarah, then you have Isaac with Rebekah, and they usually put Leah with Jacob, and his other wife goes with her son Joseph. And Zipporah joins Moses, Miriam goes with her brother Aaron. And then there's always, well, who goes with David, one of his wives? Bathsheba, Michal, or Abigail. It's a little bit of a fraught decision there. Or some people put his great-grandmother Ruth, who of course is known for her being a paragon of faith. So anyway, this idea that we have heavenly visitors joining us for 7 days, and you have this just joy, right? Sukkot is just supposed to be pure joy, and it's the joy really coming from all those days, and as we say every year in the high holidays. Talmud says there was no joyous day in ancient Israel like Tu B'Av, the Jewish day of love, and Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur was a day of feeling close to our roots and to our God and being forgiven, the joy of renewal. And so it all became the joy of a wedding. And so, right, Eskimos have many words for snow, but Jewish people have many words for joy. Jewish people have as many words for joy as Eskimos have for snow. And so there's Simcha and Rina and Gila and Sason and Chedva and Osher, and there's even more. And so each one is a different kind of joy. It's hard to know exactly what each one in ancient times meant exactly. But if you look at the roots of the words, maybe it tells you a little bit of these different kinds of joy, what it means to have these different kinds of joy. So Sason, coming from Tzis, which means to bud, is maybe the beginning feeling of joy. You just feel a little bit of joy kind of sprout inside of you. Maybe from hearing good news, just wow, something good is happening. Then you have Simcha, which is a general word for joy, but also connected to growing, tzemach, harvest, Shabbat, right? We're growing things. So it's a more fully experienced joy. It's a joy that's already grown inside of you and is part of you. More mature joy. Then you have Gila, which is from Legalot, which is a joy which means to reveal, which is already revealed, it's out there, it's beyond you, it's expressed outwardly. Then you have Rina, which is connected to singing, one of the words for singing, and that's a joy that just makes you want to burst into song and dance. You're just so happy, you just sing, you dance. Then you have Chedva, which is somewhere between a kind of desire and a deep spiritual joy that gives you goosebumps, that transports you, just deep feeling of everything is in a joyful place. And so wedding kind of gives you all those different joys. So when we have, right, you arrive at the wedding and you feel this kindling of some kind of special joy about to happen. You know, something is about to happen, seeing two people who love each other being bound together. And maybe it reminds you of your own love in your life and all the different people in your life. And then eventually you see it happen, and the chuppah happens, and it's so joyful. Then you're so joyful you want to dance and be part of the hora. And then you leave feeling a profound joy of having witnessed all this joy. It reminds you what life is all about, the blessings of life. So in the last of the Sheva Brachot, the last of the 7 blessings at a wedding, we sing, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who creates happiness and joy," right? These two kinds of joy, sason v'simcha, which are the 2 earliest stages, groom and bride, exaltation, delight, which in Hebrew are gila and rina, more uncovered joy, wanting to dance, amusement and pleasure, that's just a translation, chedva, the spiritual joy and desire. And then it goes in love and brotherhood and peace and friendship and sisterhood. And it says, "Soon, Lord our God, may the sound of happiness and the sound of joy and the voice of groom and the voice of the bride be heard in the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem, the rejoicing of groom from their chuppahs and you from their singing banquets. Blessed are you, Lord, who makes the groom rejoice with the bride." Because all that joy leads to brotherhood and sisterhood, and leads to friendship and peace. And this is the joy of Sukkot. And you know, the rabbis said that the joy of the chuppah is a joy of being kind of between heaven and earth, just like the sukkah is between heaven and earth. In fact, you say they weren't even sure if the original Sukkot that they traveled with in the desert, they have this whole disagreement in the Talmud between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer, were they real Sukkot made of wood, or were they clouds of glory? You know, how do you carry around the wood for 40 years? And so they say, the Talmud seems to lean to say that it was just clouds. They were the joy of and the protection they felt were just from the clouds of glory, from the divine presence for those long years. And just as they felt protected for 40 years of clouds, we have sukkahs that are a little more than clouds, but we just feel when we're surrounded by joy, we feel protected, we feel in a good place, we just feel, and it's not a one-dimensional joy, the joy of Sukkot, it's a multi-dimensional joy. It's a joy of all these different ones coming together, an all-encompassing joy. It's the joy of also this year hearing good news after a really long period of not hearing good news. And it's a joy of beginning joy, of sprouting within us. Maybe that this joy could lead to something greater. We're not sure. But different threads of joy and gratitude after a very difficult few years coming slowly to the surface. And we're not quite dancing and singing yet, but we kind of want to. And we're still waiting with bated breath. And at the end of the day, we always dance Simchat Torah, whether the news is good or not, because there is a joy that transcends even what's going on in our lives. And that's a joy of just being who we are and doing the best we can and just living life as we feel it should be lived. And the joy of our Torah that transcends wherever we are. And that joy doesn't come from anything outside of us, but comes from our own being. And realizing that there's always weddings and there's always celebrations and there's always moments of joy. And as we realize when we go to a wedding, we're like, oh, this is what life is really about. This is the real state of life. The real state of life is to see joy, to feel peace. So on this Shabbat, as we look to the days ahead, to the return of the hostages, God willing, to an even deeper peace, God willing, we hope that all those joys will come to fruition and lead us to much joy and merriment and exaltation and gladness, and hopefully to singing and dancing too. Shabbat Shalom.